So in this video, we're going to talk about the show me, tell me questions. The examiner will ask you two questions, one at the beginning of the test and one during the test. Now, if you do get these questions wrong, it will normally be a driver fault or a minor, but it could very easily be a serious or even a dangerous fault, so a major fault, on the show me question on the move if, when you're doing that particular action, you're losing control of the vehicle or missing information. So it's very important that you know the layout of your vehicle. So if the examiner were to ask you to demist the front windscreen, for instance, you want to be able just to press the button or turn the dials without staring down here, because if you veer off of course or you miss information out in front of you, that will be a serious or a dangerous fault. Now, if you are unsure how to do that, the examiner will ask you to pull over on the side of the road. They will ask or show you how it should be done, and then they will ask you to do that action again. So to save yourself that stress, really important that you know the layout of your vehicle to the point that you can do it blindfolded. So the video that you're going to see now is specific for a vehicle, and if you do have any questions, feel free to put a comment in the comment section below and I'll help as soon as I can. So to check your foot brake is working properly, you would switch the engine on first and then you operate the foot brake, and it shouldn't feel spongy or slack. So if it felt like the accelerator, there would be a problem. Also, when driving, if you use the brake, the car shouldn't pull to one side. If the car does drift to one side, that would show that there is a problem with one side of your car's brakes. So the first thing you would do is look in the owner's manual for the recommended tyre pressures on this vehicle. You would then use a good quality pressure gauge, put it on the valve of the tyre, and it should say the same as in the manual, so 30 psi. Remember to put the dust caps back on, to check your spare tyre as well if you have one, and also check when your tyres are cold, so before a journey. And the reason for that is because when you drive, your tyres get hot, and being a gas, that expands and will give you a false reading. So for your test, you would say that you would look in the owner's manual, use a good quality pressure gauge, make sure the pressures are the same, and remember to check when your tyres are cold. So to adjust your head restraint, you would use the buttons at the bottom, and then you adjust the height of the head restraint so your eye level is in the center of the pad. If your car also has an adjustable head restraint, you should make sure that it is as close to your head as possible without you actually touching it. So to check your tyres have sufficient tread depth, you would use a tread depth gauge. You then put it in the groove of the tyre, and there should be at least 1.6 millimeters depth of tread, so these grooves, over the middle 3/4 of the tyre. And there should be no deep cuts or bulges on the sides of the tyre. This next bit you don't need to explain to the examiner, but this 1/8 and this 1/8 don't really make any difference as long as you can't see the banding, which is like a white or a brown canvas. If you can see that, then that tyre is illegal. So you would first of all put the key on ignition so all of the lights turn on the dashboard, but do not switch the engine on. And then you twist the end of the left stalk, and then you walk around the car, and you should have 2 lights at the front and 2 lights at the back. To check your anti-lock braking system or ABS is working properly, you put the key on first click, and then the ABS light should turn on. After a few seconds, this should turn off. If it stays illuminated, there is a fault. To check your direction indicators are working, there are 2 ways of doing this. You can either put the key on ignition, do your left indicator, and then check the lights on the left hand side Get back in the car, then check the right, and there should be 3 lights on both sides, so the back, the front, and on the side just above the front wheel. The other way, which makes it a bit easier though, is to use your hazard lights, and then you can walk around the car in one go. You don't need to have the key on the ignition, and then you should have 6 lights working. To check your brake lights are working, you'd put your key on ignition first of all, and then use the foot brake. Remember, the handbrake does not turn the brake lights on. Then you would ask someone to stand behind your car and tell you if they're working, or if you're on your own, reverse near an object and look for reflections. To check your power steering is working, you pull down with one hand. It should then become very heavy, and then you switch the engine on. The steering should go nice and light. If it stays heavy while driving, then there's a fault. Please make sure that when you switch the engine on, either you have your clutch fully down, or make sure it's in neutral to stop the car from kangarooing backwards or forwards. So to turn on your rear fog lights, you would have your key on ignition first of all. You then turn the end of the left stalk so your dipped beams are switched on, and then you push this button on the dashboard. Now what you should get is an amber light come up on the dashboard. Now some Fiat 500s have only got rear fog lights, and some cars have 2, so one on the front and one on the back. Remember, front fog lights are not legal necessity in the UK, but the rear one is. So if you can see that when you press the button once, the orange light turns on, that's fine, that's the rear fog light. If it doesn't and only a green light comes up on the dashboard, then you need to press it a second time to turn on the rear. And we use the rear fog light when visibility is less than 100 meters. To switch between dip beam and main beam lights, you would put the key on ignition, so the first clicks all the lights come up on the dashboard. You then twist the end of the left stalk to turn on your dip beams, and then you push the stalk away from you to turn on the main beam, or full beam as it's also known as. And the blue light should come up on your dashboard. So to open the bonnet, what you do first of all is use this red catch here, finger underneath it, and then pull to release. What you then need to do is pull up with your left hand on the left side of the bonnet, hand in from left to right. So you've got 2 ridges here. The ridge on the left is where the bonnet catches. So you then hit that to the right hand side to release. Take the prop out from here and put it in the hole on the side of the bonnet to support it. To close the bonnet, push up slightly again with your left hand, take the prop out, make sure it goes back in the clip again. Take the bonnet down so it's about a handspan from the bottom, and then drop it. You will get people telling you to put it down and then push down on it. I prefer not to, simply because sometimes it doesn't catch properly, and also the bonnet skin is quite thin, so you can dent your bonnet as well. So to check your engine oil, remember the examiner won't actually ask you to do it, but it's important that you know how to. You would take out the dipstick, clean it with a clean dry cloth, put it back in again, and then take it back out. And the level should be between the min and max mark. So on this car you've got some hatch markings, and it should be anywhere between those. When you put the dipstick back in again, make sure it goes fully in so it airlocks the system, otherwise the engine will run a bit funny. So to check your engine coolant is this one here, and it should be between the min and max marks, which are down the back here. To check your brake fluid level is the yellow one over here, and that should be between the min and max marks on the side. Along the drive, the examiner is going to ask you one show me question, and it could be done at the beginning, middle, or at the end of the test. Now, if you do get this question wrong, it can very easily be a major fault, a serious or a dangerous. So it's very important that you know where the switches or dials are on your vehicle, and you want to do it blindfolded. Like we said before, you shouldn't have to be hunting down. Now, we appreciate that your nerves can kick in on the test. So if that does happen, the examiner could ask you to pull over, show you how to do it, and then ask you again to do it on the move. But if you get it wrong, it's a driver fault, a minor. But if you lose control of the vehicle, so you start to swerve left or swerve right, or you miss information in front of you, which causes the examiner to take control of the vehicle, that will be a major fault, a serious or a dangerous, depending on the scenario. So watch the video now. If you do have any questions, please put a comment in the comment section below and I'll help as much as I can. Obviously this is for the Fiat 500, but most cars will have the switches and dials roughly in the same area. But look at where they are on your instructor's car and practice, practice, practice. So the first thing that the examiner could ask you to do is to turn on your dipped beam headlights. Now it's important that you don't rush the show me question. Don't feel that you have to do it straight away. Wait until you've seen it's a safe time to do that particular thing. So don't do it on a tight bit of road, and don't do it when you're going into a bend. There's no rush, like we said, so wait until you can find a safe time to do it. And then all you have to do is just twist the end of the left stalk. The next thing the examiner could ask you to do is to sound your horn. Wait until there's no pedestrians around, so we'll wait until we've gone past these two, and then all you have to do is a little beep. The next thing the examiner could ask you to do is to wash the front windscreen. To do that, make sure again it's a safe time to do it, because you will be blinded for about half a second. You then pull the right stalk towards you, it will spray and then start to wipe. When it starts to wipe, let go. The wipers will go a few times, will stop, and then it will do one more singular wipe. You do not then have to switch anything off, it will do it for you. The next thing the examiner could ask you to do is to wash the rear window. On this particular Fiat 500, we can't do it because it's a convertible. But if you do have a hardtop version, you push this stalk away from you, so the stalk on the right away from you, and then the rear washer will spray and then start to wipe again. When it starts to wipe, let go, and the wipers will turn themselves off after a short time. So the examiner could ask you to demist the front windscreen. Now there's two different systems on the Fiat 500. On this car we've got climate control, so it's nice and easy. All you have to do is push the button on the far right, and then that will do the front windscreen. You can then either press it again to turn it off, or press the off button on the left hand side. If your car has the dial system, like in this video in the corner here, then the best way I describe it is go anti-clockwise, then clockwise, then anti-clockwise, then clockwise. So what you want is, air temperature doesn't actually make a difference, but it just keeps that pattern going. You then put the fan speed onto full. You make sure it's fresh air, so it's not recirculating, so you don't have this button here illuminated, or in the dial system you don't want it on this one, and you want it aimed at the windscreen. The next thing the examiner could ask you to do is to demist the rear window, and to do that is the button just down here. You press that button and then that turns on the orange light. Again, press it again to turn it back off. And the final thing the examiner could ask you to do is to open or close a window. Doesn't make a difference if you do the driver's or the passenger side. The driver's is one touch both directions, so all you do is this button here, push, and it will go automatically, and then same to go up.